Hey, welcome to BIA Live. I'm your host, Kevin Noon, joined by Joseph Hastings. There he is, and we're here to talk a little recruiting here on Monday, June 21st, coming out of yet another official visit weekend. Visitors from 21 and 22, as well as wrapping up a couple of camps from last week and going into the final week of camps. Before we get into any of that, Joseph, how's it going?
It's going really good, Kevin. How about yourself?
Well, I need to sneeze, so I'm trying like crazy. And if I drop myself off the shot, it's just because I'm trying not to sneeze on air. But as it is, we did an audio podcast at the end of last week. You were still in Atlanta. All right, here comes the sneeze. So I'm gonna let you talk for a second, see if I can sneeze.
Nope. While Kevin goes ahead and tries to sneeze, I'm going to be talking a little bit about my experience in Atlanta. So I was there for the Rivals 100 5-Star Challenge, which is a bunch of, whether it's rising juniors, rising seniors, some of the top prospects in the country were there. And, of course, we got to speak with some Ohio State targets and some commits, too. Tegra Toshabola, CJ Hicks, Gabe Powers, all of them were in attendance. So, yes, definitely a great time this past week in Atlanta for me.
May have to sneeze again. I don't know what's going on here. But, and then while Joseph was doing that, I stayed in Columbus for a pair of Ohio State camps. Had every intention of making it down to Atlanta, but as I'm sure many of you know, Southwest Airlines had some issues. And not only did I have 3 flights canceled on the way down, which made it impossible to get down there, lo and behold, the flight I would have taken back, I had a connection Atlanta to Orlando to Columbus. My connector would have been 3 hours late, and I would have been stuck in Orlando. So, it was probably for the best that I didn't go. Would have loved to have seen Joseph down at the event, see everybody down there, but kind of is what it is. But first and foremost, let's just get into the biggest story out there, and that's JT Tuimoloau. JTT. I had the chance to see him land at Port Columbus. We went live from that event. It seemed to be pretty popular, did a lot of great views. We did see that somebody exists. I had never seen him before the event. I said he may as well be a unicorn until I see him. Well, I've seen him. But somebody that big that moves that well is still a unicorn. He is just, one that we know exists. But, there are not a lot of players like him out there. Positive reviews coming out of his visit. Not one to grant a lot of interviews, but what are your feelings and what are your thoughts coming out of the visit as he immediately goes to his Oregon visit and then wraps things up with an Alabama visit, and then everybody's going to be on JTT watch?
I mean, first off, how can we not talk about, the Ohio State coaching staff just showing up and really impressing JTT and his family there with the warm reception that they received at the airport. It really just goes to show how much of a priority JTT is for this program. And, for all the reasons you mentioned, there was someone who's as big as he is, who can move at that size. Honestly, looking at his tape, a lot of it is on offense. You could make a really good argument that he would have been one of the top tight ends in the nation if he decided that he didn't want to play in the trenches. But you get him paired alongside Jack Sawyer on the opposite side of the defensive line. I said it on the audio podcast. It'll wreak havoc for years to come for the Buckeyes, for at least the next 3 years. So it really just goes to show how much of a priority he was and still is for the Buckeyes program with the warm reception he received at the airport there. And then also just going to the visit itself, I didn't really get to hear too much about it just because, as you know, JTT and his family keeps everything close to the vest. I did hear from one of his uncles that it went really well. So, and then I also heard on the side that, Ohio State is feeling pretty confident about their chances with JTT. But at this moment in time, I'm going to reserve, making any definitive predictions. Although my future cast is in and remains in for the Buckeyes, I still need to see how that Alabama visit goes at the end of June 25th through the 27th. But based on everything we've heard, Ohio State did what they needed to do with JTT this past weekend.
Want to say hello to Cheryl, who says hello in the comments, and then jump over here to Just Me, Tim, and said that he's surprised that Brutus wasn't there with the cheerleaders. A little bit on that. The visit didn't start until Friday, but they are allowed to transport a player from the airport that day before, especially when you're dealing with a West Coast kid who's flying a good part of the day. You would hate for the visit to technically start when he boards the plane or the second he sets foot in Columbus proper. So there is a provision in place to where they can transport the player. I am sure that if Brutus and the cheerleaders and a couple members of the band or whatever were there, that would probably be crossing a line of some sort. I'm not a compliance officer. I don't have all the details on that. I'm just using my own deductive reasoning, which has done well over 49 years. I've probably missed on some things over 49 years. So not going to say that I know the rule 100% fast and true, but that's my belief on that one, Tim. So until I hear otherwise, that's what I'm going to believe. But as Joseph had mentioned, JTT's taken that final visit to Alabama, which got me to thinking about, does the order matter on what the order of visits that these kids take are? And I went in, I think I went over like 19 players, and I had some very clear criteria in there. They needed to be at least an RR 6.0 or above, which means generally about a top 50 player, top 55 or 60. And they had to take at least 3 visits because it doesn't do any good. I mean, you can't really compare visit dates if they're taking, I mean, obviously if they're taking 1, that doesn't mean anything. And if they're taking 2, it doesn't really mean anything because you're either first or you're last. So it had to be 3 visits or more. And there really wasn't any definitive evidence of saying that the first visit is better or the 5th visit is better or anything along those lines. And of the 19 kids, I think it was 18 or 19 that I looked at, like 7 were players that landed at Ohio State, 11 were not at Ohio State, and it was kind of mixed. I mean, and the thing too is every kid is going to have their own parameters on their situation. Is it going to be a situation of where they ended up picking the hometown team? Is it a situation of this? Is it a situation of that? You just don't know. So, you know, we talk about this hat science when we see kids do the on-camera announcement ceremony and they have all the hats in front of them and they go to a certain hat, and are they right-handed or are they left-handed? Does one hat more broken in than the rest of the hats? What does all of this mean in terms of all of that? So, you know, I think that we've seen maybe some more definitive evidence in terms of hat science, and I've always joked with players. I said, you want to mix it up just to mess with the hat scientists out there. But when it comes to the order of the visits, I don't think that there really is a situation of where, you know, first is worst and last is best or whatever. You know, Ohio State had pretty similar success depending on where they were. I mean, first and last were a little bit above the other positions on players they missed out on. It was pretty much across the board as well. Very interesting read on BuckeyeGrove. You know, I urge you to take a look at it. But yes, the JTT news. Do we have any idea of when we may know something? You know, we're coming out of the visit period here at the end of June. He's going to have to enroll somewhere at some point if he's going to want to have any sort of impact for a college team here in the 2021 season. You know, I know we probably don't know a specific date or anything, but this has got to be ending soon, right?
Yeah, this is definitely going to be ending soon. I mean, you would imagine probably within the week or so after that Alabama visit that, you know, everything would be finalized and we would know where he's going. You know, I do want to touch on the order of the visits just really quickly. I had that question asked me on the Horseshoe Lounge on BuckeyeGrove as well. And pretty much I agreed with the notion that it's going to be on a case-by-case type of basis. And with JTT, look, he's someone who's been very methodical throughout his recruitment. He has not talked with the media, too many members of the media. He has kept things close to the vest. He released a top 5 in December and said, I'm going to wait it out to take my visits. I'm not going to sign in February. I'm not going to take any self-guided visits. I want to take my officials. So I really doubt that someone like of his, you know, the way that he approached his recruitment would be very emotional after a last visit to Alabama and say and go with recency bias and say, okay, that's going to be the school for me because they had the best last visit, for lack of a better phrase there. So I really do think that it didn't matter too much to order the visits. I've been in the mindset that it's actually beneficial for Ohio State that they got him this past weekend, just because there were only 4 other official visitors on campus. One of them being 5-star commit CJ Hicks, who, if you read my piece on Hicks from his official visit, he was speaking with JTT throughout the whole time that they were together on campus. So I actually thought it really was good timing for the Buckeyes to get him this past weekend. And with somebody who's been very methodical throughout his recruitment, I really don't think the last visit, if it goes well with Alabama, which you would expect that it would, because with Nick Saban and the program that they have there, you would expect for it to go good. I don't believe that's gonna make JTT say, okay, they were the last one, then that's gonna be the school I go to, and he'll go off recency bias. I really do think he's gonna weigh everything out, and we'll get a decision within that week or week and a half after.
Yeah, just somebody who took it this far. It would have been very easy for somebody to say, you know what, the hell with this. I don't know when it's going to end. I just want to get somewhere. I want to start my 3-year clock as quickly as I can, because if I'm as good as everybody says I am, I'm not going to need 4 years. I'm not going to need 5 years. It's going to be 3 years and get there. So I have a hard time believing that somebody like that is all of a sudden just going to just say, well, I'm just going to sit there and go to where I went last or where I went first. I mean, does that mean he's not going to end up at Alabama? I mean, he could end up at Alabama. Does that mean he's not going to end up at UW? He could end up at UW. But as of this point, my future cast is still at Ohio State. That's what I believe. I have not heard anything to move me off of that pick. But the Bama visit is the one that, if I'm Ohio State, I'm the most concerned about. And that's not taking anything away from Washington, Oregon, or USC. But I think that this really is an Ohio State-Alabama battle and something to keep an eye on. And, I'm going to change the subject here quickly. Something that was also an Ohio State-Alabama battle in a certain way, and that was a battle for transfer linebackers. And Alabama won the battle in landing Henry To'oTo'o, the former Tennessee linebacker. But it appears that Ohio State is in really good shape, landing Palaie Naoteote, the former USC linebacker. Joseph was doing a little prep work on some things and found EA, as his friends call him, in the Ohio State student directory. We do not have confirmation from Ohio State. Nobody within the program has said anything one way or the other. I did speak on the record to a spokesperson from the athletic department who said that they had just updated the roster recently, and that the player that I had mentioned was not on the roster at that point. But that's probably just a formality at this point, and it seems like they do have their guy in Palaie Naoteote.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kevin, on a Friday night, who wouldn't want to be looking up OSU student directory and plugging in, a few players, like EA. I decided to go on there Friday night, see, if anything had transpired. We hadn't heard much about him. I found his name. I spoke with one of his family members who confirmed with me that he had enrolled at Ohio State. Didn't know which day that was, but that was true. So just in case there was another EA out there, I won't pronounce his full name in hopes of not embarrassing myself, but in case there was one out there, I wanted to have it confirmed, and we did have it confirmed to a family member. And also EA posted on his Instagram story, caught in 4K, which for the younger generation, I'll kind of explain what it is. It's pretty much he saw that it was posted that he was in the OSU student directory and that he was pretty much caught in action. He was caught, with his name being in the enrollment when he wanted it to probably be quiet. I don't know if he wanted to make his announcement or something like that on his own. But yeah, so it's seemingly confirmed that he is enrolled at Ohio State, but we can't, we don't have it gone. It's not been, confirmed to Ohio State itself. So that we need to make that very clear. But yeah, it definitely would be a pretty good addition for Ohio State, especially with the linebackers that they lost, going from 2021, to this upcoming season here. So I definitely believe that with the injuries that he has, there is a little bit of some concern, but who knows? This was a former top 100 player on Rivals.com. Played for USC. That's not a bottom feeder program by any means. So we'll see if this actually ends up being 100% confirmed, but it really does feel like EA is on his way to Ohio State and going to be a member of the football team this year.
And coming out of June, we'll get into July. We'll wait for it all to be announced. We'll talk a little bit more then about the impact, because at this point, it's a lot of speculation. But honestly, come July, I think it's still going to be a lot of speculation at that point. What his role is going to be, what the linebacker room is going to look like. We're trying to do this show in about 45 minutes, so I don't want to get too far off of what it is we're talking about. So I promise you, we'll talk about that one more come July once we get a little bit closer to the season, probably bring in Griffin Strom as well, and really kind of go over what we think that looks like. I just got a weird text message from somebody, so I don't know what that was all about. What I want to talk about is the official visit weekend. And they had several visitors on campus, as you said, C.J. Hicks being a commit, but Dallin Hayden, Jake Pope, Kojo Antwi. Nobody really has, a situation of where they have a bad official visit. I mean, it's just varying degrees of good, but these all sound like they went great.
Yeah, from everything that I heard behind the scenes, these visits did go really well, and you also saw the social media post on Twitter, Instagram. The official visitors, Jake Pope, Kojo Antwi, Dallin Hayden, they really enjoyed themselves, and then also C.J. Hicks, unsurprisingly, he went to the stadium in uniform. It really does feel like he could be a member of the football team this upcoming season, and I also got to see him at the Rivals 100 5-Star Challenge. So definitely very beneficial for him to be there. But a couple players I did want to talk about is, one of them being Dallin Hayden. He's the prospect that we really were keeping an eye on and sort of putting on commit watch before this visit, just because he openly admitted that following this visit, he's going to know what his decision will be, or that he's going to at least begin the process of making that announcement, arriving to a decision. And, the schools in the mix for him were Notre Dame, Ohio State, Illinois, but we really figured this one to be a Notre Dame-Ohio State battle. Just based on everything that we have heard thus far, it really does seem like Ohio State knocked this one out the park. And I have my future cast still in for Hayden to wind up with the Buckeyes. We don't know when it will happen, of course. We don't know, he hasn't gone out, to my knowledge, and announced the commitment date. So we'll see, but I'm fully expecting Ohio State to wind up with Hayden, and it'll kind of be interesting to see what they do with the running back board there. Caleb Johnson, who's somebody that we got to speak with following last week's camp. He's an in-state running back. They did work him out at linebacker, but he would presumably be a running back if they offered him. He could be a name to pay attention to. Omarion Hampton, who's scheduled to visit this upcoming weekend, he's somebody to pay attention to, but it really does look like Hayden's going to be the lead back in this class. And then also Kojo Antwi, I did hear some very interesting things that, he liked what he saw. He liked the competition that is in Ohio State's wide receivers room, and we spoke with him, Kevin, a couple months ago at the Rivals camp in Atlanta, and he said that competition, that competition in Ohio State's receiver room wasn't going to impact his interest in the program. And that was kind of reiterated. He liked what he saw from, the receivers, what they did, the workout drills that they did, Coach Hartline coaching them up. He liked everything that he saw on the visit. I'm hearing that Ohio State is up there, potentially top 2 in his recruitment. He's scheduled to make a decision July 5th, so we'll see where he ends up going. I do tend to believe he may end up in the SEC, but just based on what I heard, the Buckeyes did make a strong impression on him this past weekend. And I'm supposed to be catching up with Jake Pope later today, so hopefully I'll have an article on him. But, just from the looks of it, it seemed like that visit went well too.
I'm going to jump in here and answer Tim's question. Joseph can't jump in here, not based out of Central Ohio, so you're going to have to take my word for it. Hyde Park is a really good steak. Honestly, if I'm going to pick a steak anywhere in Columbus, it's going to be Jeff Ruby's. He's not a sponsor, no endorsement. I'm not getting a gift card for saying that. Jeff Ruby, by far, is my favorite steak. If I'm looking for something that's a high-end steakhouse, but maybe a little more economical, I recommend The Top. The Top is a really good steakhouse. They have fantastic prime rib, really good cocktail program. Another place that I really like. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email at kevin@BuckeyeGrove.com, and I'll kind of give you my steak power rankings. I could probably do a whole show on that and get a lot of interest on that. I'm a bit of a foodie. I certainly love my red meat, and I have a lot that I can talk about there, and it seems that Tim enjoys that. So there we go, and boom, thanks. Just to end that. Let's get back into talking about the upcoming official visits, and I'm not even going to get to the weekend yet because we have one that's taking place today and one that starts tomorrow.
Yeah. So actually, there's going to be 2 official visitors arriving on campus today. Terrence Brooks, Rivals 100 cornerback who recently got offered, told me that he's starting his official visit to Ohio State today. I've had some confusion with some players telling me the wrong dates before, but that's what he told me via DM. And then also Tyler Booker, borderline Rivals 100 offensive tackle out of IMG Academy. He tweeted out a couple of hours ago that he's pretty close to getting to Columbus and that he'll start his official visit. Then another player who was supposed to actually visit this week was Kamari Ramsey out of California, Rivals 250 safety, but we were told by him that the visit had to be canceled. It doesn't seem like Ohio State's going to be an option for him at the next level, but that's definitely a situation to pay attention to. So that visit has been canceled. So there's 2 official visitors that are beginning their trips to Ohio State today. With Terrence Brooks, it's really interesting because, once again, we've been talking about this. Ohio State has 3 cornerbacks committed in Jair Brown, Jaheim Singletary, and also Ryan Turner. So what is going to go on here? They're going to sign 4 cornerbacks. Yet again, is this going to be a case where maybe they're anticipating one player may not be ending up in this class, so they're trying to shoot for 4 to land 3 and not end up with 2 in the end? Who knows at this point? I think it's a little bit too early to tell, but it definitely goes to show Terrence Brooks' interest in Ohio State at the very least, because he got offered by them just 1 week ago today. So this was a really quick turnaround to get this visit set up. The Buckeyes are a program that they talk with prospects at least a few months in advance before offering them. They did the same thing with Jaheim Singletary, with Walter Nolan. So they do their due diligence before offering them. They may have gotten a good read with Brooks that if they did extend that offer, that they'd be able to have a good shot in his recruitment, thus explaining the quick turnaround here. But that's an official visit to pay attention to. And also Tyler Booker, he's somebody who told me a couple months ago that Ohio State was one of the programs recruiting him the hardest. He likes the development opportunities there, what Coach Stud has done during his tenure with the Buckeyes. And I think they're a top 2, top 3 school for him. Florida really likes where they stand with him at this time, but I think after this official visit, you may hear some smoke about Booker to Ohio State. I think they're really up there in his recruitment. We'll see if they can pull this off, because as you and I know, Ohio State offensive line recruiting definitely needs to pick up. They only have 1 committed right now, Integra Tushabola. They're going for Emil Wagner, in-state kid, Jalen Early out of Texas, but they only have 1 committed right now. If you get Booker, that's pretty big time, as he's somebody who can go inside, outside. Elite talent out of IMG Academy, which is a program you want to continue recruiting at. That's a stellar program that produces elite players on a yearly basis. So we'll definitely see if they can get him. They're also targeting Jihad Campbell from IMG. But yes, the 2 official visitors on campus starting today, and we'll try and catch up with them following their visits.
Right. I want to get back to the Kamari Ramsey too, because if we look at the safety position, they've already got Kai Stokes, who was moved from athlete to safety in the Rivals database. We highly recommended that after he committed to Ohio State as a safety. And then you wonder, where things stand with Zion Branch, where things stand with Xavier Nwankpa. Very real possibility they could end up with both of them. Probably not the year to be a safety outside of those guys and make it into the Ohio State class. Now, you don't know. You don't know here at the end of June who's going to end up signing. Ohio State normally doesn't deal with a ton of attrition in terms of its recruiting classes, but it is recruiting after all, and you just don't know. So certainly a situation there. And then I want to throw a second thing at you as well, and then we'll dovetail to something else, and we'll talk about the upcoming visit weekend. And that's if Ohio State wasn't as interested in Terrence Brooks as we think that they are, offering, and then 7 days later he's on a plane to Columbus, it would have been very easy to say, we'll see you in the fall. Come and visit us with the backdrop of a football game or whatnot, to be able to do that. But the fact that they put together that visit in such short order, at least to me, screams that there should be a pretty good amount of mutual interest. And that's not me putting in a future cast for Terrence Brooks. Nobody leap ahead on that and think that you're reading between the lines. There are no lines to read between there. But it would have been very easy to slow play him a little bit if this wasn't something of where you would be ready to move if he were ready to move.
Yeah, and we've seen that. We've spoken with a few prospects who said that Ohio State would prefer for them to take official visits in the fall. That would be the program's preference. So if they really, were kind of waiting to see what the cornerback board would look like following the summer, following some commitments, whether they'll be able to land some targets or not, that they would definitely have pushed it to the fall, that official visit, instead of trying to squeeze it in so quickly. So I definitely believe it's a sign of high mutual interest between Brooks and Ohio State. And I'm not going to say too much further just because I haven't been able to speak with him yet. I don't know too much about his recruitment right now. There are a couple future casts in for Texas A&M, but those were submitted in April before his offer. We'll see. I'm very interested in seeing what he has to say to us after he takes his official with the Buckeyes. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this one plays out, because we know that Julian Humphrey, a Florida Gators commit who's also from Texas, he took a visit to Ohio State earlier this month, camped in front of the coaches, but they're looking to set that visit up for the fall, and he hasn't been offered by the program just yet. So they're definitely keeping some guys warm. They definitely have some guys that they're in hot pursuit of. Austin Jordan, Ephesians Prysock, both of them took official visits, not this past weekend, the weekend before. Ephesians is really high on the Buckeyes, and he's out there from California as well. So I think at some point in time in this 2021, into 2022 class, that 4 cornerbacks will be committed. Whether they sign 4 cornerbacks still remains to be seen. I'm not going to go out on a limb and say that that's going to be the case, but I definitely believe that they're aiming for 4, and at least with the hopes of signing at least 3, potentially 4 when it's all said and done.
I'm going to jump to a question that we had over on the Horseshoe Lounge, and everybody wants to know who's going to be the first for 2023, and we kind of go round and round about that. The offer list is starting to swell a little bit more as camps go on. They're able to evaluate a lot of players. How about throwing out somebody like Treyon Webb, who made an announcement about something July 4th, but that very well could be a top schools list. That may not be a commitment, but they certainly made a huge impact with the Jacksonville, Florida star athlete. We could sit there and go round and round about, some of the in-state guys. I mean, we could talk about Padilla, or we could talk about, as I'm kind of going through the list, Luke Montgomery or Brennan Vernon. I don't want to start listing off all the names and then leave Joseph with nothing at that point, but who do you think? I mean, and we kind of answered this at length, but it sort of was like how we were with Henry To'oTo'o, what's going on there, what's going on with JTT. And I think until Ohio State breaks the dam and gets its first commitment for 23, this is going to be the question that we might be answering on every show.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough one just because it can go honestly in any direction. I really do believe that Sonny Styles could be the first commit for 2023. I mean, we've seen him on campus already 3 separate times, 3 separate days this month. He camped in front of he worked out in front of the staff 2 times already. And what a big time commitment that would be for the Buckeyes. I think that would be the dream case scenario if they're able to land him as the first 2023. Whether he decides to or not remains to be seen. He's still, as of recently, been reeling in offers. He's a big time player. May want to take some more visits, but we'll see. Another player I'll bring up to you, and it's. I don't know for certain if this is going to happen or not. There was a lot of smoke following his visit, but Gabriel Harris from Georgia, decommitted from Florida State, got an offer from the Buckeyes. Most would presume that Ohio State is the unofficial leader right now in his recruitment. Could he decide to pull the trigger? I think the fascinating question is not who's going to be the first 2023 commit. It's going to be, is it an out-of-state or in-state kid? And I don't know. It's kind of 50-50 for me, but I would probably lean in-state. Maybe a guy like Padilla decides to join the class first, or Luke Montgomery. We heard really good things after his visit to start off the month. So, yeah, I honestly could not give a definitive answer there. I think Sonny Styles is a lot closer than some people may think to committing, but it all depends on who's the first to commit. And I think that will open up the floodgates in a sense, kind of how Jair Brown committed. then Tegra Toshabola a day later, and then CJ Hicks less than 2 weeks after that back last year in the spring of 2020. So it all kind of remains to be seen, but I won't make any definitive predictions that people will hold me to.
Right, and just to answer Tim's question, 6'5" safety. I mean, when you look at Sonny Styles, you look at a guy that can play on all three levels, and he is worked out with coaches on each level. I mean, he could be somebody who could be a bullet in the secondary. He could be a linebacker. He could be a stand-up end. He could be all of them. He probably is all of them. It's just a matter of where he fits in best within the system, and I think that he certainly could be a situational type of player. Of he could do X but then be asked to do Y and Z as well, just because of his ability. So, I wouldn't label him as, well, if Ohio State lands Sonny Styles, they've got their safety, they've got their linebacker or whatever. He's all of them. He can really do all of them, and I think it's important for Ohio State to be able to recruit him like that, and I think it's important for Ohio State to be able to continue recruiting the year of saying that he's a little bit of everything, because if you fill up in a position, of course, you run into the situation of where maybe you run into a little bit of a brick wall with other players who might not be as keen of competing or whatnot. I mean, of course, you want guys that are going to be competitors from the word go, but yeah, don't pin him in just as a safety, because I know Ohio State doesn't.
Yeah, for sure. You talked about how he's worked out with Coach Johnson, Coach Washington, Coach Coombs, and Coach Barnes. He's somebody who's going to be able to play any position that they need him to. I really do think that the bullet is if he had to pick just one role that he's gonna be at from the first day he arrives on Ohio State's campus, assuming that he does sign with the Buckeyes, it would probably be the bullet position, just the outside linebacker, safety hybrid role that they really like. That's also the position that Xavier Nwankpa is being recruited at, which I found to be really interesting when I spoke with him earlier this month. But yeah, he's somebody where if someone gets injured at a certain position and they need more help there, that he can slide in. He can play pretty much any any position that he wants to in the defense. He's the true definition of an athlete. So yeah, I definitely agree with everything you had to say there.
Let's jump on Dalton Moore's question here. Talking about Jaheim Singletary, talented defender out of Jacksonville. Do we see his recruitment a little bit like Shaun Wade's? Will he stay committed? Will he take his officials? Make sure he's comfortable with his decision? My 2 cents on it is I don't know if I see it being super iffy or anything like that, but I do think he takes some visits. I mean, I think that anybody who committed during the COVID window or around the COVID window who's not had the opportunity to go and see some things, I think that there certainly is the possibility that can happen, even if he were to come when he took his official and everything. I don't even have his official in front of me, if it was last week or this week or when he's supposed to be taking that.
It's this weekend.
I mean, he may come up and say, I'm done with this. This is what I want or whatever. And we still get to November and he's like, well, I wouldn't mind checking out, UF or UGA or whoever it may be. So right now I take Ohio State definitely over the field. He's committed to Ohio State, certainly saying all the right things. He's been very transparent with the coaching staff. It's once you don't know where your commits are and you don't know what it is that they're doing, that's when you need to be concerned. But and that's not to say every kid who's been transparent has 100% signed with the school they're at. No, that's not the case at all. But I would much rather have it in front of me than reading about it on a message board or hearing about it on a talk radio show or something like that, because, and that's not saying that anybody who's looking out for their best interest, which ultimately you've got to look out for your best interests here. So it's not saying that if you do that you're bad or something like that, but you need to enter this, kind of contract being forward and transparent, and Jaheim so far has done everything above board, and I expect him to sign, whether it be in December or February, but I'm not willing to put any large bet on that either.
Yeah, Jaheim Singletary's recruitment has been one that I said before he even committed to kind of just pay attention to, because it arrived a lot quicker than I was expecting for it to. I thought he was going to try and at least take some more visits He went really quickly from a top 8 to a top 4. Ohio State had offered him in early November and got a commitment 2 months later. I've been doing this for a few years now. I haven't been in the business as long as you, Kevin, but once you hear commitments 2 months after offers, your antenna raises up just a little bit. You're a little bit more wary, especially like you mentioned in a COVID year when you don't get to have visits like that, where the dead period blocks off those visits. You have to be concerned. But just based on our interactions with Jaheim, I've spoken with him a couple of times in person this year. It really does feel like he's all in with the Buckeyes. He really likes his relationship with the entire staff, mainly Tony Alford. Tony Alford's done a really good job recruiting not only him, but his mother as well. So I'm not saying I'm taking Ohio State over the field as well, but I think he's going to take some visits. And I think the good thing is that he is communicating with the staff, letting them know of his intentions to take those visits, having that honest relationship there. He's not just one day you just show, he goes to Miami and Gary Furman from our Miami site reports that he's there, and then Ohio State is caught, not being in the loop about the whole situation. So I definitely would side with Singletary staying in this class. But like you said, I'm not going to place a large wager on it right now. I need to see if he ends up taking visits or not.
Just to jump into Brian Dillon, one of our great members over at BuckeyeGrove, his question, I do see him very similar to Clemson's Isaiah Simmons, kind of that Swiss Army knife that can do a lot of everything. It's very easy for me to sit there and say with recency bias that, I can see Styles being able to do a little bit more. But, again, I saw, Simmons really being, excelling at 2 levels. I think I could see Styles really excelling at all 3 levels. It's just a matter of getting your best 11 out there and making sure that you're utilizing Styles in the best possible way. And we're talking about a kid who still has 2 years left. So, before a follow-up comes up and saying, well, where do you think he's best? What I see here in June of 21 is going to be very different from what I'm going to see in October of 21, October of 22, January of 23. But yeah, Brian, I absolutely agree that he is in that Isaiah Simmons mold. Heard that name thrown around at camp when I was talking with a couple of other recruiting writers. So you're dialed in. You're right there with, I think how both of us feel.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I'm a basketball person, so I'll use a basketball analogy here. He's kind of a positionless player. Like it would be disingenuous to say that Styles is going to be a safety at the next level or an outside linebacker or rushing off the edge. I just think that he can do so many things that recruiting him specifically at one position will limit him. I don't think he would like that. I think he wants to have a little bit more flexibility just in cases, who knows how his body may fill out. What if he puts on 30 or 40 pounds in the next couple of years and, he develops more into a DN? Who knows? Like, I still think that outside linebacker safety hybrid role is the best one for him. But once again, we're talking about a kid who I don't know his age, but he's 16 or something. He's a rising junior. His body can still fill out over these next couple of years. So yeah, but I do like the Isaiah Simmons comp. I really do agree with that one.
All right, let me jump off of our Sonny Styles questions. Let me jump off of first of 23, and we got a big official visit weekend coming up, and it still could be in flux a little bit. You don't know who's going to be here until they're here, but a lot of major names coming in this weekend of the 25th. Cam Dewberry, offensive tackle out of Texas. Grew up as an Ohio State fan, but I think that I'd take the field over Ohio State there. Eni White. Got commitment Caleb Brown, Kenyatta Jackson from the same high school as Ryan Turner. Jaheim Singletary, as we've talked about. Markeith Williams. He had a great official visit at Nebraska a couple weeks ago. Chris McClellan, who's a very interesting defensive tackle prospect, but you don't know how things are going to shape up there with Hero Kanu being somebody who maybe we weren't talking about as much a couple of weeks ago and now maybe need to talk about a little bit more. Gabe Dindy, who's a player that, every time I look at his tape, I'm more and more impressed with him. And then, of course, Amari and Hampton. So a lot of big names there that are going to be in for this final, visit weekend. It's kind of a smoke them if you got them. You're going to try and get as many guys as you can in there that your plans are to get them in for June versus September, October, November.
Absolutely. And before we dive a little bit more into those players, I want to talk about a couple of guys who were supposed to show up, but will no longer be officially visiting. One of them being Jaden Bellamy out of the Northeast. He was supposed to take an official visit. He's a cornerback prospect in this class, but decided to cancel it for one reason or the other. Probably have to presume that there's some higher cornerback options on the table right now for the Buckeyes. Maybe could be a similar case as with Kamari Ramsey, but he's no longer going to be officially visiting. And also Kristen Miller, he was going to be kind of one of the highlights of this official visit weekend, but he told me at the Rivals 100 5-Star Challenge that he's not going to be taking that official, that he decided to cancel it. He said that after the USC visit, he wants to focus on himself, focus on his craft. I put in my future caps for the Trojans. I believe they blew him away. His good friend Michael Williams just committed. So Miller was somebody we were talking about, and I think it's relevant to this conversation because, talking about defensive linemen, he was somebody that we had spoken with before. It seemed like Ohio State was in that top 2, but USC is going to win now. Now Ohio State will have to shift their attention to some of these other defensive linemen, and Chris McClellan is up there, hero canoe in terms of which defensive tackles I can envision ending up in Ohio State's 2022 class. He really, he was really impressed following that offer that he got from the Buckeyes back in March. He likes Coach Johnson's resume. I think also the position versus flexibility that they're going to allow for him, moving inside or outside, that's really appealing. And this is a kid whose stock has kind of soared through the roof. It's, his recruitment has blown up this spring. And Ohio State kind of seeked them out a little bit earlier than some of the other ones, extended that offer, and I think it could end up paying dividends for them. Eni White, another player along the defensive line too, is someone worth paying attention to, especially with Penn State, the in-state Penn State Nittany Lions not making the cut for him and his top schools list recently. I think Ohio State has just as good of a shot with him as anybody else. And as we spoke about before, Omarion Hampton, Dallin Hayden could end up committing. We don't know when that commitment will be, but it would be interesting to see if Ohio State lets Hampton know that Hayden is going to be somebody who may end up being the lead back in this class, and that Hampton would kind of be that second guy. Is Hampton okay with that? We've gotten the indication that he would be fine being in a 2 running back class, so I'm definitely paying close attention to that one, especially with how well Ohio State has recruited in North Carolina. I mean, we just saw it a year ago. They recruited Evan Pryor out of Cornelius, North Carolina. So he's another one I'm paying close attention to. But yes, just a big official visit weekend for Ohio State. I said it earlier in the show. I think for Ohio State, they're glad that they got JTT this past weekend, not this weekend, because although Johnson would have prioritized spending time with him, even with all these defensive linemen in campus, it could affect their pursuit of guys like Kenyatta Jackson, Eni White, Chris McClellan, if JTT was there too, and, they wanted to show him attention, show him he's a priority. So, huge official visit weekend coming up, and what a way to end the month for Ohio State.
Right, exactly. The deck was clear in terms of defensive linemen for that June 18th visit weekend with two guys on offense, a linebacker, and somebody who projects out as a safety. Larry Johnson was able to put every waking hour that he could in building that relationship with JTT, with the family, and everything else. So you're absolutely right. You're not having split attentions there or anything like that. So it worked out pretty well. Then, of course, you're going to have to take Alabama's, best punch in there and hope that you're the last team left standing. So, we'll see. Cheryl, we enjoyed providing these updates on these recruits. We're going to try and keep doing these shows, hopefully here on a weekly basis for a little bit. And then once we get really into the dregs of July, maybe we'll go a little bit more infrequent. But, as we get more and more likes and more views on these shows, we're much more, apt to do these shows more often. They're very easy for us to do. And, it's just an opportunity for us to maybe free flow some ideas that we don't necessarily get to do on the message boards or get to do on the site. But this is a perfect accompaniment to the website. So be sure that you're a member at BuckeyeGrove.com. Not a member, use code VISITS2021. Get a free trial through August 10th. Be sure to check everything out. Let me, jump over here. Dalton Moore jumping in again. Is A.J. Harris a guy to watch for possible commits sooner rather than later? Yes, the Buckeyes are very high on this list. But he certainly is a national type of kid. He lives right on that Georgia-Alabama line. Ohio State certainly has success in Georgia. Ohio State has not had success in Alabama, but also doesn't really get involved in a lot of recruitments on players from Alabama. Harris is a little bit of a different kid in terms of, again, where he lives. And, he's not somebody who's 30 minutes from Tuscaloosa or anything like that. So, there certainly is an opportunity. I don't know about Joseph. I'll let him jump in. I don't know if I have him as an immediate guy. I think on somebody like that, I almost want him to go out, experience some things, check some things out. Don't get that early commitment there and have to play defense for a year and a half. Then again, I would, in some instances, I would rather have the commitment and try and hold everybody off than to never hold a commitment there. But it's difficult to play defense on those.
Yeah, I mean, AJ Harris is somebody who enjoyed his 2-day visit to Ohio State this past week. I actually spoke with a couple of guys, Caleb Downs and Ethan Nation, both of whom are 2023 prospects in Georgia. And Harris raved to them about his visit to Ohio State, talked about the culture, the campus, the coaches, the coaching style that he saw from them. So he really enjoyed himself. Him and his family both enjoyed it. And we had spoken with him a couple months ago, and he was high on the Buckeyes following that offer. I think this visit elevates them even more in his recruitment. But once again, this is one of the top defensive backs in the country, one of the top cornerbacks in the country. You're going to go up against a lot of top schools for his services. Do you want to land that commitment this early and have to stress for a year and a half? I mean, we're talking about right now earlier in the show about Jaheim Singletary. That's you land a big-time commitment from a guy like that, you're going to have to play defense against some of those top programs for a long time. But if Harris wanted in today, I think Ohio State absolutely accepts his commitment. I mean, what a way to start off the 2023 class, landing in Alabama. They have never, at least to my knowledge, never signed a player out of Alabama. So that would be a huge pickup for the Buckeyes. I would say Ohio State's probably in his top 2 right now. But once again, we have no idea when a decision will be made. I do think that Ohio State should be seen as a legitimate contender right now, though one of those top 2 schools in his recruitment.
Right. I mean, at least, they haven't signed anybody from Alabama in the 85 scholarship era, 110 or unlimited. Who knows during that point? There's certainly been some points where Alabama wasn't what Alabama is today. I don't know where it fits on the intersection of where, obviously Bear Bryant or Gene Stallings versus where the scholarship numbers are. And I certainly remember Ohio State landing players from Louisiana. We can maybe say Corey Smith was from Mississippi, even though he's really from Akron, but he went to whatever that was, East Mississippi JUCO, the one from Last Chance U. Unfortunately, he was there the year before the show really started, so we didn't get to see him there. Joseph, I'm going to throw it back at you one final time. We're going to take JTT off the table as I ask this question. And, of course, that's the answer everybody's going to want to know. But one prediction between now and the end of June in terms of recruiting or something along those lines. I know we didn't talk about this before the show. I'm putting you on the spot. I'm filibustering here to give you a second to think about it. I think everybody would love for us to sit there and call our shot on JTT. I'm not moving my future cast, so maybe I'm calling my shot right there. I think Ohio State will land him. Ask me after the Alabama visit, but at this point, I don't have any reason to move it. But call your shot on anybody out there. And if you do want to throw it on JTT, that's allowed. No rules here, but I'm trying to let you off the hook a little bit.
Yeah, I think it would be cheating with JTT just because, we submitted our future cast last year. We've kind of been expecting him to wind up with Ohio State. We heard great things about this visit. I'm not moving my pick whatsoever, but once again, I need to see what that Alabama visit looks like. If he had taken Alabama, the first weekend of the month, and then I heard these great things that I heard about this weekend, I probably would have been a little bit more firm on it, but I want to see how that visit goes. As for the big, prediction that I would make, I would say Dallin Hayden, right with 50 running back out of Memphis, Tennessee. I think he winds up in Ohio State's class before the month is done. He had told me at the Rivals 105-Star Challenge last week in Atlanta that he's expecting to make a decision shortly after he wraps up this visit. It's his third and final official visit, the one to Ohio State that he took. I think everything just went extraordinarily well. Alfred has done a solid job there communicating with him almost every single day. His dad is high on the program, Aaron Hayden, who played for Tennessee. I know I already have my future cast in, but yeah, I think Dallin, before the month is done, ends up a Buckeye.
Well, there you go. I agree with you there as well. And I kind of had a feeling that's where you're going to go. So I'm glad I could set you up there. We certainly have had, Joseph and I, we do talk multiple times a day online or, various ways. So we're very connected in terms of the things we talk about. Cheryl jumped in with another note, Buckeye Subject Sawyer. I think that we didn't even talk here about Wilfredo Ibar. We talked about him on the audio podcast last week, somebody that Joseph had the opportunity to talk with his head coach. It sounds like the reclassification to 21 will happen. Wilfredo did repeat a year, not academically as much, but just to, in terms of physical development and things. So it's not like he's going to be out there Doogie Howser style, 16 years old and, not physically ready or anything like that. But imagine a class that comes together with Ibar, JTT, and they pair him with Jack Sawyer. You certainly would have some dudes on the defensive line. So, a lot to be excited about. Something that's come out on social while we've been doing this, Jack Sawyer is switching his number from 33 to 40. What major recruit wears number 33? Could it be JTT?
I can't think of anybody. I mean, it could be. I mean, we don't know.
It could be. Now, again, he has not visited Alabama yet. So don't go out and get your custom jerseys made or anything yet, but still a lot of good pieces out there in terms of what things look like in terms of this recruitment. But
Kevin, I heard behind the scenes that it went really well, and that Ohio State is feeling really confident. And with that news right there, we don't know what to make of it. Once again, I said this before, don't have a PhD in dissecting social media from recruits and players. I don't have that just yet, but that seems a little bit interesting if you ask me. But based on how the visit went, what we've heard, the fact that he's changing it from 33 to 40, once again, we need to see how this Alabama visit goes. But I feel a little bit more confident in my pick now just after you said that. Right.
So we'll see. And, if anything comes up this week, maybe we'll fire up the machine and do this again. Next week, I may or may not be in Ohio. I may be on vacation. But even if that's the case and it warrants, I can do this from a lounger on the beach somewhere. So, I'm not going to say not to expect a show next week. I'm not going to say to expect a show next week. But it's kind of a 24 hours a day, 7 day a week type of job, even if you are out of the country. So, be sure to keep it locked in here with BuckeyeGrove.com and, of course, at BuckeyeGrove.com. Once again, last plug for this show. Not a member. Why not? Get on board. Free trial, August 10th. Visit code VISITS 2021. Do it. Just do it. I mean, come on. Just do it. I mean, we would appreciate it. So, just get on board. Give us a check. Check us out. A lot of exciting stuff going on. We're a month away from Big Ten Media Days for football. So it's not even like we're going through a huge lull of like a typical summer. But I promised Joseph I would have him free and clear by 4:00 so he could talk to a player afterwards. So we're going to wrap things up. Any final thoughts, Joseph, before I hit end on this show?
No final thoughts whatsoever. Just, sign up right there, as you mentioned. Email you if you have any questions. And thank you all for tuning in. We really love doing these shows.
Absolutely. We do enjoy them, and we couldn't do them without all of your fine support, watching the show, being part of Buckeye Grove, talking to us on social. If you like it, tell a friend, tell 2 friends, tell 10 friends, get them to sign up, all that good stuff. But so I can keep my promise, we're going to end it now so Joseph can jump off. Be sure to watch the replay. Shoot me an email at kevin@buckeyegrove.com if there's anything you'd like to see us do on the show that we're not doing. But until then, I want to thank Joseph. I want to thank you. I'm your host, Kevin Noon, and we will talk to you again